Hello debutantes! Today's handmade holiday project is a hand-painted or stenciled pillowcase. So I'm going to show you everything you need and all the steps to complete the project. So let's get started. Okay, so for this craft, these are the items that you will need. You will need a pillowcase in the color of your choice. I'm using this white one that I got for 50 cents at the thrift store. You will need some freezer paper. You can buy this on the paper goods aisle of your grocery store, Target, but you will need freezer paper, not wax paper. Make sure it's freezer paper. I just found this image on Google search and printed it out to kind of use as a guide for my holly leaves. I like to have something to look at. You can also print out any words in a font that you like, just so you can either follow it or put it, if you can see through your pillowcase, you can put it behind here and follow that to trace it. Then you will need an X-Acto knife to cut your image out on the freezer paper. Paint brushes. I am going to use these Sharpie paint markers. I'm not sure which color I want to use yet. And then these are the acrylic paints I'm going to use to paint my design. My room is pink and gray, and I'm going to put this pillowcase on my bed. So those are the colors that I'm choosing. And if you want, you can buy this fabric painting medium. You just add a little bit of this to acrylic paint and it makes it softer on any types of pillows or t-shirts or anything that you want. You don't have to have this, but it does help a little bit. So I think those are all the items that we're going to need to make our painted pillowcase. The first thing I did is measure out a piece of freezer paper that would pretty much line up right here on my pillowcase. My little hem was a little less than 3 inches, so I cut out a 3-inch strip of freezer paper. I used this image that I printed off of Google, and that was my inspiration to draw out these holly leaves. And you can see this little part in the middle. I'm going to cut that out as well. So I'm going to cut the leaf out, I'm going to cut this part out, and then I will show you what we do with our freezer paper. So I left out one key piece of information when you are drawing your design on your freezer paper. Make sure you draw the design on the matte side, not the shiny side of your paper, because you will be ironing this down onto your pillowcase where you want the leaves to be. And you have to remember how the pillow is going to sit on your bed, and then that will tell you, where you want your holly leaves to be, or whatever you choose, whatever design you choose. You could use bells, you could use words. I just kind of like the holly leaves because I thought it would go good with my gray and pink theme. So now what you want to do is you want to make sure that your iron is on, make sure it's like on a cotton setting, and the next step is to put this down where you want it on your pillowcase and then begin to iron it down, nice smooth. Take it here and then go a little bit and make sure that it is staying straight and that the design, you see here my design is a little up, so make sure that your design is where you want it. You could cut this and use each pieces separately if you wanted, which now I'm thinking maybe I will do that. I also cut out the little tiny pieces from the leaf, and I will place those in the middle of my leaf like that and iron that down at the same time. So that is what I'm going to do next, is I'm going to place these exactly where I want them and then iron them down. I have my holly leaves ironed down. Make sure you iron them shiny side down. That's very important. If you do it the other way, it will stick to your iron and you will not have good results. So I have ironed it down. I have made sure that it is secure, none of the ends are coming up, and basically now you have a stencil and you're ready to paint. So I am going to paint my holly leaves silver, and I have my fabric painting medium, and you see I just have a little tiny bit in there. So I am going to just add like 3-4 drops of the fabric painting medium, and then I'm just going to mix that up and I'm going to start to paint. And remember, when you paint, gonna get paint everywhere. When you are painting your stencil with the paint, you want to make sure that you start on the outside and you come in like this, the paint is less likely to pool under your stencil when you go from the outside in. And I don't think I'm going to use a very heavy hand with my painting because I want it to look kind of vintage and antique-y. So I know the white on white is a little hard to see, so I am going to mix my paint up and paint a little bit, and then I'll show you the result. Okay, so I've painted most of the holly leaves. I'm just going to show you a little bit of how I'm doing it. So I'm starting off the edge here and I'm feathering it in, making sure that the ends are nice and crisp. But you see I'm not using a lot of paint, and then I'm just lightly going over the center piece. I am leaving some white space where the paint isn't all the way because I want that kind of faded out vintagey look. So this is what they look painted on the stencil. Now you're not going to take the stencil off yet, well, at least I'm not, because I want to go over it with my extreme glitter acrylic paint just to give it a little bit more sparkle. So I'm just going to let this dry for just a few minutes because I do want the glitter paint to kind of mesh in with the metallic. So that will be my next step, is to add the glitter. Now that I have finished painting the silver and the sparkly glitter, which it's not super pronounced, of course it is still a little wet, we can go ahead and peel off our freezer paper, and it should come off nice and easy. Of course, if you're using two hands, it'll probably be a whole lot easier. So there is the holly leaf, and you can see the edges are kind of feathered in. Now I'm just going to try to take this middle piece off. The paint is still a little damp, and there you go, and there's the centerpiece. So our very next step is to get another piece of freezer paper. This is the piece I cut out, and you're going to need something to draw small circles onto your freezer paper like so, and those are going to be the holly berries. So you can kind of decide, you know, where you want your berries and cut out the circle, and then we're going to let this dry, of course, and we're going to place some more freezer paper over where we want the berries, iron that on, and paint the berries right on to the pillowcase. So I'm going to peel this one off. I'm going to get my berry stencil ready, wait for this silver paint to dry, and then we will paint on the pink berries. I'm not sure if I told you to make sure you put a barrier between the two sides of your pillowcase when you're painting so that the paint does not go through to the other side of your pillowcase. I'm just using a piece of mat board that I had handy. You can use, I wouldn't use newspaper because sometimes the ink will go through, but a piece of cardboard, a magazine, anything that you don't mind getting paint on, but make sure you put a barrier between the two layers of your pillowcase. So I have painted the pink, and I'm going to peel this off. And there's one of the berries, and then this one, I actually did two. I'm going to peel this off. Now I do not mind that the leaf shows through a little bit. I like that it's a little bit transparent, but I do want to add a third berry, and I wanted it to overlap, so I went ahead and made a few other just single circle stencils, and I'm going to put this one over here, maybe like right in there. So I'm going to go ahead and iron these down, paint those, and then I will show you that result. The berries looked a little flat to me, so all I did was I came in with my paintbrush, a little bit darker pink than the one I'm using, really just dipped it in the tiniest bit, wiped it off. It's almost it's like almost using a dry brush technique, and I just kind of feathered in some of the darker paint. Now you can do this before you take your stencil off, but I didn't notice it until after. And then I just did the berry that's overlapping just a little bit darker around the edges, and then I did the same exact thing with these berries. You can see, and as it dries it'll feather in a little bit better. So that is what I did, and I'm going to add one more little thing, I think, to the berries. I don't know if I'm going to use I have some pink extreme glitter. I don't know if I want to use that, so I'm going to kind of try some different things out and see what I like, and then I'll let you know. Alright, so I added a few little things. I took the tiniest little liner brush, and I used the darker pink and just put a little tiny line to give it a little bit of a shadow or highlight. And then I did, those are my dogs walking around, I'm terribly sorry. Then I took a little bit darker gray, and I just followed along that line the white just to give it a little bit more depth, and I just use this, I think this is from Michael's, and it says gray. So I use the metallic, then I use the glitter, and then just a little bit of the dark gray. I did add some glitter to the berries, and next time if I was going to include this step, I would definitely do that while the freezer paper was on. But if you have a super steady hand, go for it. I think mine are a little messy, but I think it'll still be pretty. So that is what I've added so far. I think that I would like to add some of these little squiggly lines, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do it with a paintbrush or a paint pen. So I have to think about that. I added in the little squiggly lines with my liner brush and some of the dark gray paint. I'm thinking if I were to do this again, I would probably use one of these super fine, extra fine point silver marker pens. I just think for me, because I'm not a painter, I would have a little bit more control with this, but I do like the way it came out, a little filtered. And then the last thing I did was I added some words, and now I'm kind of wishing I hadn't added this. I think it looked a whole lot classier without it, but for 50 cents and a little bit of time, I can make another one. How I wrote the words down is I just took a piece of printer paper and I kind of measured out the 3 inches and then just gave myself some lines to follow, and I wrote it out in pencil, which I could have followed this up with Sharpie, but I could see it just fine. And then I just slid it behind here so I could follow the lines, so that way I knew it was spaced properly and the letters were correct. So this is what it looks like, all finished. And I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to turn it inside out once it's completely dry and hit the back of it with a hot iron to heat set the paint. Once I finish with that, I'm going to put it on my bed and I'll show you what it looks like. So here is the finished pillowcase, all made up on my bed. I have my pretty white sweater pillows with the vintage rhinestone buttons up against the pillowcase, and I have my gray and white pillowcases next to it. So there it is, all pretty with the pink and the gray in my pink and gray room. So I hope you enjoyed this project. Now remember, you do not have to do holly leaves. It does not have to say naughty. It could say ho ho ho. You could use jingle bells. You can do any type of thing that you can cut out of freezer paper and add to your pillowcase. These would be adorable with a child's name and some type of Christmas design on either end that they really like. Maybe a little drum or a truck, or, you know, the profile of a Barbie doll. I mean, that's easy enough to cut out of freezer paper. So remember, think outside the box. Don't think you have to only do this design. I hope you enjoyed this homemade holiday DIY. Please subscribe if you have not, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!